This story is one of the most shocking and paradoxical cases in the history of global forensics. The girl who spent 8 years in an underground concrete bunker didn't just survive. She was able to outmaneuver her captor, make a daring escape, and then shock the world with her reaction to her tormentor's death. In this video, we'll break down Natascha Kampusch's case from the first to the last second, look deep into her underground prison, and learn chilling details that are usually left out of short social media clips. Natascha Kampusch was born on February 17, 1988 in Vienna. Her childhood was hardly a fairy tale. Her parents divorced when Natascha was still young. In her memoirs, she described the home atmosphere as cold and mundane. She lacked attention, had almost no close friends, and often felt invisible in her own home. Ironically, it's this sense of irrelevance that will make her incredibly resilient in the future. The day before the tragedy, on March 1, 1998, Natascha had just returned to her mother's house after a vacation with her father. She was only 10 years old. The morning of March 2, 1998, was cold. Natascha packed her bag and went to school. The path was familiar, but she never made it to class. When the girl did not return home by lunchtime, her mother sounded the alarm and contacted the police. It was obvious. A 10-year-old couldn't just run away or go on a spree for many hours. Austrian police launched an unprecedented search operation. Immediately, an important witness appeared. A 12-year-old girl who claimed to have seen Natascha being forced into a small white van. However, the police made the first fatal mistake. After interviewing the witness's teachers, investigators heard that the girl likes to fantasize, and her testimony was shelved, focusing on the theory that a family or a pedophile gang was involved in the disappearance. Nevertheless, the police checked about 700 white minibuses across the country. 36-year-old technician Wolfgang Priklopil's car was also checked. During the examination, Priklopil behaved completely calmly. He claimed there was one house on the day of the kidnapping, and he uses the van exclusively to transport bricks and cement as he's building a new house. The man had no criminal record. He seemed a quiet and withdrawn neighbor. The police were satisfied with this explanation and removed him from the list of suspects. It was a tragic oversight that cost Natascha 8 years of her life. Where has Natascha been all this time? Less than half an hour from the kidnapping scene, Priklopil brought it to his home in Strasshof. He set up a soundproof bunker under his garage in advance. The area of Natascha Kampusch's underground prison was only about 5 square meters, and it was 2.5 meters underground. The entrance was securely hidden behind a heavy concrete safe in the garage's observation pit. The ventilation was artificial, and Priklopil operated it entirely from his home. The room was completely absent from natural light. During the first year of imprisonment, Natascha was strictly forbidden to leave this room. She was in total darkness and silence when Priklopil turned off the lights and ventilation as punishment for bad behavior. The only source of knowledge for her were books and radio, which the kidnapper later began giving her to keep her going. He wanted to raise her to be a perfect, submissive woman. Over time, the regime changed. A year later, Priklopil started letting Natascha out into the house. She had to cook, clean, and do all the homework. Wolfgang suffered from a severe form of obsessive-compulsive disorder. He demanded perfect purity, arranged things strictly according to the ruler, and severely punished the girl for the slightest speck of dust. From Natascha Kampusch's memoirs, "He could beat me to the point where I could barely walk. When I was beaten, he tried to calm me down, and then he would take a camera and take pictures of me." Priklopil built a system of total psychological suppression. He starved her. By the time she escaped at 18, Natascha weighed only 42 kilograms at 160 centimeters tall, which is the weight of a 10-year-old child. He made her call herself master or maestro. Moreover, he told her that all the doors and windows of the house were bombed with explosives, and if she tried to escape, the whole block would be blown up. Since 2005, she has been allowed to go out into the garden, and in 2006, he even took her to a ski resort. Why didn't she run away then? Years of paralyzing fear, total exhaustion, and the conviction that people around them would not believe her or suffer took its toll. The day of August 23, 2006, forever divided Natascha's life into before and after. Priklopil ordered her to vacuum the interior of his car right in the yard. At that moment, someone called his cell phone. Due to the deafening noise of the working vacuum cleaner, Priklopil could not hear his interlocutor and made his main mistake. He moved a few meters to the house, turning his back on Natascha. That vacuum cleaner noise gave Natascha seconds of determination. She turned off the machinery, quietly closed the car door, and started running. She jumped over the fences of her neighbor's gardens. The gaunt, pale, ghost-like girl begged rare passers-by for help, but people waved her away in panic. She finally saw an open window in the house of a 70-year-old local woman. Natascha knocked on the glass and uttered the words that shocked Austria. "I'm Natascha Kampusch." The old woman immediately knew who she was talking about, because the case of the girl's disappearance had not left the screens for many years. The police arrived immediately. As soon as Wolfgang Priklopil realized that Natascha had escaped and his secret was solved, he went on the run. That evening, he committed suicide by throwing himself in front of a commuter train in Vienna. His body was badly mutilated. When Natascha, who was at the police station, was informed that her tormentor was dead, she became very hysterical. She cried bitterly. Subsequently, this fact led the whole world to talk about Stockholm Syndrome. But the opinion of psychological experts is unequivocal. Natascha's reaction isn't love for a criminal. Wolfgang Priklopil was the only person to shape her reality for 8 years. He was her executioner, but also the only adult who fed her and gave her books. His death meant the final and dramatic destruction of that frightening but only world she knew. Natascha mourned not a tyrant, but part of her own life. The real tragedy for Natascha was what happened after her release. Society and the tabloid press expected to see a broken, crying victim sharing the dirtiest intimate details. But Natascha turned out to be a strong, articulate girl with clear personal boundaries. She flatly refused to discuss the sexual aspect of her captivity. This caused a wave of cynicism and aggression from the public. Terrible rumors spread. The press wrote that Natascha gave birth to a child in the bunker and buried him in the garden, which was completely refuted by DNA evidence. She was accused of lying, and her mother was accused of complicity in the kidnapping for money. The girl who escaped from underground captivity was captured by public condemnation. Years later, Natascha Kampusch committed an act that finally confused the inhabitants. She bought Priklopil's house. Journalists shouted about insanity, but Natascha had clear motives. First, protection from desecration. She didn't want the house to turn into a creepy museum for onlookers, tourists, or maniac fans. Second, control therapy. Becoming the mistress of this place, she mentally conquered her fear. At the same time, the underground bunker itself, by decision of the Austrian authorities, was completely covered with concrete so that no one else was injured there. In 2010, Natascha released her autobiography, 3,096 Days, which became an instant global bestseller, and in 2013, it was adapted into a film of the same name. Natascha donated most of the money she earned to charity, helping women in Africa and Mexico. The story of Natascha Kampusch is not a story about weakness, but about the incredible strength of the human spirit. Finding themselves in inhumane conditions, the 10-year-old girl was able to keep her sanity, develop intellectually, and wait for her one chance at salvation. She survived underground, endured ground baiting, and proved that the victim has a right to be strong and does not have to live up to others' expectations.